Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding. There is an odd aspect of us human beings. We bond with those whom we suffer. Very tight and very real emotional ties spontaneously form when we endure some kind of life-threatening event or trauma with another. It does not need to be a friend or relative. It can be any other human being. Often we experience trauma with strangers, and bonds which constellate the event unexpectedly occur. Any friendship that has lasted a few decades can also testify to bonding with a friend when the bottom fell out of life. Cancer patients bond with other cancer patients because they share the same disease. Many plane accident survivors meet annually on the exact date of the accident, and they feel a sense of fulfillment in staying in touch with others who defied death alongside them. Had the plane accident never happened, they would have never purposefully encountered anyone on the flight again, yet the trauma of the accident mysteriously holds them together for life. I certainly have experienced trauma with my wife, Jenny, who has endured with me the raising of 2 kids into adulthood, job loss, car accidents, career changes, cancer, broken bones, financial destitution, and all kinds of challenges that brought life to catastrophe's door, and ruthlessly broke right through it. Enduring these kinds of events with another bonds people together, like it or not. It happens and is very real. Trauma within the accident bonds both the stranger and life partners equally. No previous relationship or pre-established love is required. The accident, the horror, the trauma is the binding agent. Connections between others happens unexpectedly, spontaneously, and incontrovertibly. We neither choose nor control the connection we feel while experiencing trauma with another. Like love or hate, it just happens to us. We do not motivate trauma bonds to create them. We experience the bonds by participating in life. Okay, the key thing I want you to get here, right at the end here. We neither choose nor control the connection we feel while experiencing trauma with another. Like love or hate, it just happens to us. Now this is critical. This is one of the key points of my book. Do you choose to love? Ask yourself this. When you met your spouse, let's say you're married, did you, originally when you first met them, did you choose to fall in love with them, or did it happen to you? We have this odd idea that we choose love. You don't choose love any more than you chose to love your kids. It happened to you. You loved them simply because they were born. You loved them the first moment you saw their eyes or saw them in the womb or something. You know, it happens to you. There's this bonding moment when you realize, my God, I'm in love. It's exactly what happened to me with my wife, Jenny. When I met Jenny, I had no intention of falling in love with her. I mean, I found her very attractive. I remember when I first met her. But I didn't have any intention, and this is my point here. It's authentic. Love is authentic. It happens to you. You find out you're in love with someone, and after you find that out, like you come into that realization, all you want to do is express that love to your love that you have for them to them. Okay, it's not a choice to express that. It comes out of you. It's coaxed out. In this way, it's authentic, and this is true love. True love is never a choice. True love never has a condition, okay? And so, like love or hate, you don't choose either of those because you don't choose who you hate. This happens to you through life events, and you develop a hatred for someone. It's something that occurs. You find out about it, but you don't meet someone any more than you say, I'm going to love this person or I'm going to hate this person. These things happen to you, okay? In the same way, this trauma bond happens. And I've explained through the examples in this paragraph here preceding that sentence, how there's a natural bond that happens to people when they go through a trauma, when they go through catastrophe. I've bonded with my wife because of catastrophes we've faced. I've bonded with my kids for the same reason. I've bonded with friends for the same reason. I gave these examples because these are many examples that I personally have experienced. I've bonded with other cancer patients because I had cancer. It just happens, and it's not intended. And that's a real critical point here, is that your mind is not involved. That's the key point not to miss. Your mind is not involved. Your mind did not decide to love or hate. It happened to you. Your mind did not decide to form a trauma bond with someone you went through trauma with. It happened to you authentically, naturally, as just a product of life, a product of experience, a byproduct of experience. And that simply happening to you now has changed you, because now you have a bond with that person that you'll never be able to break. You'll never be able to break the love that you have for your kids. No matter what happens, no matter what they do, you'll never be able to unlove yourself from them. You may not want to love them because they do something terrible or something, but you won't be able to stop yourself from loving them, because love isn't a choice. It doesn't have anything to do with the mind. This is the key thing. Your mind is not in charge in this situation. Your feelings, your sense, your shin, that is what's running the show. Whether it's love or hate, that is what's running the show here. Because you're not choosing this. You foster love, you foster hate, but the original core feeling, experience, and knowingness happened to you. And this is so important to understand, because one is the primary and one is the secondary. Fostering love is a secondary action. Feeling love is a primary action, because you don't choose the feel. You actually just feel it. It is so important to differentiate these two things, because the realm of Christianity sits in the secondary realm. That's where it exists. It doesn't exist in the primary. It exists only in the secondary, because it only exists in your mind, because when you were born, you didn't know anything about Jesus or sin. You were taught these things. These are all secondary things, whereas no one had to teach you how to love. No one had to teach you how to hate. These were already inside you. Nothing to do with your mind. Inside your gut, inside your shin. They're already there. Okay? So Christianity completely preys upon the mind, because it's a choice. You choose to believe. You choose to believe that you're a sinner. You choose to believe that the world is fallen. You choose to believe that the world has to be saved. These are all mind things. You choose to believe that you're separated from God. You see? These are all things that are put into you, like you would put programs into an OS on a computer. If you were to make a computer and have a baseline operating system, this is exactly how you would do it inside a human being. Because you tell them right at the start, right at the beginning, your baseline understanding is that you're a sinner. That's your baseline. So no matter what happens, no matter what occurs in your life, what you see, whatever, always the baseline is you're a sinner. That's your identity. You're a sinner who's saved with grace if you're a Christian. So that's your baseline. And your baseline for the universe is it's fallen. Okay, so there's no other option. Okay, that's a trap. That's a mind trap. Because you've taken a person who's this feeling being, whose primary rests in aspects of themselves which come out, which they discover, right? That's the primary being. And you're trying to say, no, you're a secondary thing. You're a mind thing. You're a sinner. You need to be saved, which is even secondary after the sinner. You're oriented to these mind ideas, not oriented to these feeling and sensing and knowingness ideas, the things that just come out of you. You see? And one of my major arguments in this book is that when you put a person into a secondary condition, a conditional existence, you've now tripped them up from their primary reference, the reference of love, the reference of hate, the reference of understanding and knowingness that is within them. And so when you separate a person from that reality, from that primary, and force them into a secondary reality by believing these things in order to find understanding, that person developmentally is going to have a hard time fostering love and these and joy and these emotions inside themselves, because they're living in a secondary reality. They're living in a secondary idea of themselves, an idea in the mind. And this is why addiction and coping mechanisms and dependencies and divorce and all these things are so high in Christianity, because all of the members, all of the society is living in this secondary means. And the person who's secondary is always behind the ball. They never have the ball. They're always behind the ball. And a sinner is always behind the ball because a sinner is always prone to sin. You're behind the ball. You see, you're in a secondary reality. And my argument here is that's not a good idea because you're a primary being. Your true potential, operation, understanding, animation all comes from the primary reference, which is nature, which is your substance, the aspect of you that can't be described. Because you can never describe a person on paper or with words in the same way you can't describe love or hate. But you can describe a belief. I can describe Christianity pretty good. I can describe what being a sinner is pretty good. I can describe what being saved and what grace is pretty good. Because these things are all secondary. But you can't put into words things like love, hate, and joy. Because these things are past definition in the same way that you are. So your reference is a conundrum, not being a sinner. The primary is not that you're born a sinner. The primary is that you're born an enigma. And when you see yourself as an enigma, neither a sinner nor a saint, but an enigma, well, then you have a mystery you can never resolve. And that's the beauty of life, experiencing life, because then life then shows you through experience who you are. You see, and then you then learn who you are through experience and through the actual truth, which is your reality, your experienced reality, rather than learning the truth through a book. Because you can't learn the truth through words. You can't learn the truth through a book. You see, it's because it's always going to be secondary. Experience is the primary. Yeah? Okay. So what I'm